in keeping with the babies class theme, we'll start in Genesis 3:20. Genesis 3 and verse 20. And Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. Yeah, she's the first one, and we're all here because of her. We're here because of God primarily, right? But she was the mother of all living. So I was trying to figure out, a good way to handle this. And one of my favorite stories is in 1 Samuel 1, starting at verse 10. We could read the whole chapter, but we'll just start at verse 10. We're talking about a gal named Hannah. A lot of you will know the story. We'll read it anyway. She was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord and wept sore because she couldn't have kids, or hadn't had any yet anyway. Her husband loved her, everything seemed good, but she wasn't having children. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou will indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. That's quite a vow. That's huge. She wants this child, but she's willing to give him up for the Lord, if he will bless her with it. And it came to pass, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli marked her mouth. That's something we would never consider in New Testament times, and I'm not sure that it was right even then. But there you go. Verse 13. Now Hannah, she spake in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunken. Well, he was wrong. He made a judgment call that was totally wrong. Now Hannah, verse 14, and Eli said unto her, How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. So Eli had a change of heart. Good. Verse 18, and she said, Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went away and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. She felt better. Eli turned around and petitioned to help her. Verse 19, and they rose up in the morning early and worshiped the Lord and returned and came to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. We don't think about this very often these days. God has a hand in this stuff, doesn't he? Yeah. Either way, God has a hand in this. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow, his yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned, and then I will bring him, that he may appear before the Lord, and there abide forever. So she's remembering her promise. Skipping down to verse 28. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. Skipping to verse 28. Sorry about that. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. So Hannah desperately desired a child and promised that son to God. And she fulfilled her promise. Now, the reason I'm reading this story is because How much is a mother's love to a child, especially when the mother desired the child that much? How hard would it have been to take your only son, very young son, I don't know that anybody knows the age, I sure don't, hand him off to the priest and say, okay. How hard? A lesser person might have turned back on that promise. Hannah did not. This is an example of a loving mother. Love and sacrifice is the hallmark of a loving mother, isn't it? And this sacrifice wasn't to make Samuel's life easier, but it did make Samuel's life better, didn't it? So it was a sacrifice of the relationship in a certain fashion, but only for improvement. But can you imagine taking your, I don't know how old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, whatever, away from mom, and for the 3-year-old to go to work? Imagine the tears. I mean, this is kind of a heart-rending thing. What a loving mother, but what a difficult thing. Second chapter, 1 Samuel 2, we'll read the 21st verse. 2 Samuel 2:21. And the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters, and the child grew before the Lord. So it was a good thing. Samuel was a famous prophet and did the Lord's work for his whole life. Proverbs 11:16. Proverbs 11:16. A gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. I think the first is better than the second, don't you? Some people are takers and some are givers. Being gracious is a giving thing, isn't it? A demanding person is not gracious, and a gracious person is not a taker or a user. A loving mother is a giver, and a giver, and a giver, and a giver, right? Yeah, I mean, it's got to be about the toughest job. To do it right, to do it with love, to do it for the children to grow, to learn to love the Lord, to be appropriate children. It's a tough job. It is a tough job. So, on the other side of the coin, Exodus 20, verse 12. Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Interestingly enough, I knew this was in the Bible several times, but I didn't know it was in there at least 10 times that I counted, if I got them all correct. New Testament and Old Testament, this is well repeated. So we all have mothers, and we are commanded to give them appropriate honor. The responsibilities of parents, however, sometimes are difficult. Exodus 21, verse 15. Exodus 21:15. He that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. He that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. So, verse 16, we didn't need to read. I mean, we understand that if you're a slave dealer and you're actually going and stealing people, that's not appropriate. But what do you do if your kid smacks you, or even if they curse you? Would you tell? I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just thinking out loud here. Would you even tell, knowing that that would be their death warrant? Wow. The responsibility of a parent is huge, isn't it? Maybe whatever you do, you better handle it in such a way that they don't curse you. Teach them at a young age, right? Because this is likely someone old enough to smite you. So we're not talking a little person. We're talking somebody who has decided to take you out some way or another. Following that thought, Deuteronomy 21, verse 18. Deuteronomy 21:18. Talking about the responsibilities of parents. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then his father and his mother shall lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of the city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious, and he will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of the city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Yeah, that would make me afraid. And I have to confess, I'm so glad that I'm not in the Mosaic time, that I don't have to actually do any of these things that we've read here. But it shows God's opinion about rebelliousness, doesn't it? And it starts at home. So the responsibility of parents is to stifle that, isn't it? Stifle that. That doesn't mean you can't ask questions. In fact, everybody knows that that should be the right way to handle things. But actual rebelliousness is something else. So these things have fathers and mothers mentioned in them. And how do we treat our mothers? Do we treat our mothers different than our fathers? Well, you know, the answer is sometimes, yeah, much different. Why? Because likely dad can take you out. Right? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Mom maybe can't, well, there might be some exceptions, Leanne do, but mom generally can't or isn't inclined to. Mothers have a different mindset. Bless their hearts. They're willing to sacrifice whatever they have to sacrifice. So yeah, it's easy for children, especially older male children who haven't yet flown the coop, to mistreat their moms, especially in this modern society where there's a lot of single parent families. Really makes it tough. So moms and dads, do the best you can to keep that family together, because the whole thing needs to be done correctly. Proverbs 1:8. Proverbs 1:8. Which says, My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Yeah, mom has laws. We definitely have to make sure we're there. Obviously, we have to do more in Proverbs than just that. Proverbs 15:20. Responsibility of the children. A wise son maketh a glad father. Yeah. A foolish man despiseth his mother. So kids, you ever had negative thoughts about your parents? Fix it. Don't do that, because you're called a foolish person if you do that. So is that only in the Old Testament? Nope. Matthew 15 and verse 4. For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me. People put off the responsibility of helping their parents, don't they? Yeah. Don't do that. This reminds me of 1 John 3:18, which tells us to love in deed, not in word. So we take care of our parents, especially the mother. Moving on, 1 Timothy 5:3. 1 Timothy 5:3. Honor widows that are widows indeed. Skip down to verse 9. Talking about the church's responsibility here. Let not a widow be taken into the number under 80 years old. That seems kind of young for me now. Well, it says something about my age, doesn't it? Having been the wife of one man, well reported of for good works, if she have brought up children, if she have lodged strangers, if she have washed the saints' feet, if she have relieved the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. Tell me, does that sound like a good mother there? Totally, in every respect, doesn't it? 2 Timothy 1:5. 2 Timothy 1:5. Paul talking to Timothy, when I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee. Wow, Timothy has some good faith, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice. Yeah, so you want faithful kids, have faithful mothers and grandmothers. Absolutely. I think of Hannah. She was faithful and sacrificed for her son, and it was for his good, even though it had to have been painful at the time. Okay, Ephesians 5:31. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. And the result of that, of course, is another mother. Right? Speaking of those mothers, let's turn to John 19, verse 25. John 19:25. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus, not a good time, his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple standing by, whom he loved, he said unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then saith he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her unto his own home. So Jesus took care of his mother clear to the end, made sure that she was well taken care of. An example of Jesus' love, right? So how long is our obligation to our parents? Forever. And we can't ignore Proverbs 31. We'll read some from Proverbs 31 here, starting right at the first verse. Read the whole chapter, but we'll try to not read it all. The words of Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. How many of you remembered that? What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. So a wise woman, mother, warns against foolish women, because destruction follows. So just because you're a female doesn't mean you're a wise woman. That's universally true for any of us, men or women, isn't it? Verse 4, it is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. Okay, I'll be sarcastic here, but it's okay for poor people, right? Lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Yeah, that would be terrible. But it's okay for poor people to have perverted judgment. Some people pretend that these verses aren't there, or they laugh at you if you bring them up. But they are there. Skip down to verse 10. Verse 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? That's $1 million question, isn't it? Or that's not enough money, is it? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Man, that's trust. That's why he trusts her. That's awesome. When you're choosing a spouse, keep that in mind. Skip down to verse 25. Verse 25. Strength and honor are her clothing. Well, obviously, that, again, like Tony was saying this morning, that's not literal, but that's how you recognize the good mother, the virtuous woman. Strength and honor, that's how she is recognized. And she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Yes, that's what mothers are all about, isn't it? She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. And what about TV and novels? Oh, come on. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Yeah, don't be afraid to acknowledge when your wife does well. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Yeah, not all are equal, are they? Favor is deceitful. Another word for favor here is charm. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. That kind of drills that one in, doesn't it? But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Yeah, people know. People know. That's a wonderful Mother's Day passage, isn't it? New Testament, 1 Peter 3, first verse. 1 Peter 3, 1. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands. That almost doesn't sound like Proverbs 31, does it? This guy was out and about and doing things and handling the affairs of life. But those two things are not in conflict. If they are, you might have a rotten husband. That if any obey not the word, they also may be won without the word. Did I say that right? I want to say that over. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wise. For those who have difficult spouses, when do you get to give up? And if they won't hear the word, then at least use your behavior, your lifestyle. You don't get to give up. You have to handle this the right way. Verse 2, while they, that would be the not too wise husbands, behold your chaste conversation, lifestyle again, behavior, coupled with fear. Fear of what? Fear of the husband? No, fear of God. That's what it's all about. So it's not the silent treatment. It's not that you can't speak. Conversation, the word conversation shouldn't be misused here. It's simply the best love that you can do to help convert, to convince others that God is really in charge and everything has consequences. Verse 3, whose adorning, let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting of the hair and of wearing of gold or of putting on of apparel. So, young people, not wives here, if you choose your spouse just because of their looks, you're probably asking for trouble. Now, this is not a command not to take care of your hair or looks. It's just a warning. Don't let that be the measure by which you choose your spouse. Measure their behavior and fear of God. And if they fear God, they will have love. Think about that one a little bit. Verse 4, but let it be the hid man of the heart, and that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. The ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. So when there's a disagreement, is it better that your spouse is of a meek and quiet spirit or of a loud spirit? Everybody knows the answer to that, right? So when you have that issue, you can't change them. Can't do it. There's no changing them. You already chose them and married them. Now what can you do? Now you can just do the best you can. You can change yourself. You can be meek and quiet. You can be the one that fears God. Then maybe you can help. Verse 5. For after this manner in old time, the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife. Yes, husbands, I'm sorry, if you're an obnoxious, overbearing husband, you aren't doing this. Remember Proverbs 31. The woman is your equal in so many things. God set the order of things, but don't devalue her. Give her appropriate honor, as unto the weaker vessel. That's part of the reason. And as being heirs together, there's an equality there, isn't there? Of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So if a husband doesn't honor the wife appropriately, the prayers are hindered? Yeah, that's what it says. Really simple. Now, if we keep reading, the very next word is finally. Some people want to separate the thought here, but another way to look at that word finally is concluding. So continuing the thought, concluding, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous, not loud, demanding, and overbearing, instead of a meek and quiet spirit, right? Verse 9, not rendering evil for evil, this modern world, railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing. That is a motherly thing, isn't it? It is. But it should be a Christian thing for all of us. Knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. Big picture. Don't focus too much on right now. Things might be difficult right now, but big picture. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil. Control it, bite it, and his lips that they speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. Now, if we connect that, the word prayer is there, and the word prayer is in verse 7. Prayer is hindered. Not honoring the spouse. It's a wonderful text. It sets in order a lot of things, but it sets the character mostly in order, doesn't it? It's a character thing. Speaking of big picture, Matthew 19, verse 29. Matthew 19, 29. And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. It doesn't always work in this life, does it? Sometimes there is failure, but big picture. Keep it together, and what you get is so much better. Everlasting life. Matthew 10:37. This is not an anti-father or an anti-mother verse. It's just a big picture verse. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So, big picture. We love our mothers, we love our fathers, we love our children. Hannah loved Samuel, but she loved Jehovah more. What a good mom. So moms, we do give God-authorized honor to you today, but not just today, but every day. Love always. Let's have a song.
Song number 126. Count Your Blessings, number 126. Please stand as you sing.
Finish with a word of prayer. Our Almighty Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for the many blessings that we have each and every day, for the blessings of this life, for the blessings of wonderful families of mothers and fathers, for the blessings of the prophets of old, for David, for Hannah, for Samuel, Lord, especially for the blessings of your promise to those who are faithful and love you and seek you first, Lord. Please be with those searching for your truth, those in need of strength, physical and spiritual. And Lord, we thank you for all good things. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.